Hey folks, welcome back to another video. In today's video, it's about the convolution reverb and some tricks or some things, some inspirations for you, what you can do with it. It's not only a reverb, even though it says it in the name, convolution reverb here. For me, convolution is more like an Instagram filter for your sounds. You can replicate devices, not only spaces, not only rooms. You can also replicate devices and also effect chains, and you can create interesting rhythmic effects. You can use it as a diffuser, and I want to show you in this video some small things you can try out for yourself to get some interesting sounds. It's also nice to have when you are on the go, when you use a laptop and you don't have your favorite device, your favorite amp simulator with you. Or if you are on Linux and you want to replicate some interesting VST effect you can't use under Linux, or if you want to take some devices, hardware devices with you, you can make some kind of snapshots of these devices, what they do to the sound, and can apply it with this device here. So yeah, let's start off here by the obvious things. When you start up the convolution device here on a sound, you can play this try sound here inside the St. Peter's Cathedral. So you can replicate the room, and you can replicate what this room does to your sound in a way. It's not perfect because you have only one sample, and it's not really dynamic, and that's the main critic from people that use these devices, that it's, you know, it doesn't change when you input sounds differently, and it's more like a sample. You have always the same sample that's used to process the sound. But you can do some tricks to your sound. For instance, you can put something in the WetFX here. For example, the new Chorus Plus device, which brings in here some modulations and a bit of spread. So you can kind of fake a bit and bring in the imagination that it's alive and something happens, and a bit of modulation here. Maybe you can also use here some random modulators and change some of the parameters. So it sounds like it's different every time you play it, or it's slightly different you play it every time. So you have like the best of both worlds. You have here the perfect snapshot of the room, what it does to your sound, and then something algorithmic here in the WetFX box to bring it alive or keep it alive. With Bitwig Studio, you get also a lot of impulse responses here. A lot of different things. You have like studio rooms, so small rooms. Halls. So this is a church here. You can hear it's a pretty big room. But you also have here, let me see, some rhythmic effects. Something like this here. Yeah, you can see it's almost like a drum loop. Right, so you have a rhythmic effect. So you can also, instead of having real rooms, you can also have fake rooms and fake delays and all kinds of fake things. So the important thing with this device is what you put inside here of the sampler, or let's call it, yeah, sampler. I guess it's a sampler, kind of. And yeah, you can also snapshot, for instance, or for example, some of your effect chains inside Bitwig Studio. And when they use a lot of CPU power, you can boil it down or bounce it down to one of these impulse responses and take it with you inside this device. And I want to show you some things here. later on in the video. But first I want to give you some idea where we get some impulse responses from. For example, I use here this Isotope Trash 2 plugin. I think most of people have this already because it was on sale multiple times. And inside here you have multiple tabs, and you can go here to the Convolve tab. And in here you have some impulse responses, body, some amps, classic amps, all kinds of different amp devices. And they basically put a sound through these devices, an impulse response through these devices. And you can use these impulse responses also inside the convolution device from Bitwig Studio and can replicate this device. And you can find these here in, let's see, this is Documents, Isotope Trash 2 Impulses. And then you have here body, for example, it's a fishbowl dynamic. What this means is they put basically a speaker inside the fishbowl and recorded it with a microphone. And you can just drag this in. So let's get this fishbowl in here. And then replicate. Oh, it's a bit too loud, huh? So let's remove your trash 2 first. And so now we have the dry sound. Bit quiet. So it's not a big difference, but you can hear the difference when I use your drum loop. It's more obvious that way. So just drag this over to the drum loop. And let's listen to the drum loop. Ooh, funky. So you can imagine how this drum loop would sound if you would play it back inside of a fishbowl with a speaker, and you got the snapshot basically here as an impulse response, and you can apply it to your sound. And this is what I mean by it's an Instagram filter for your sounds. It sounds like real vintage, or it sounds vintage. It's exactly like on Instagram, right? It looks like it's a vintage image, but it's not. It's like fake. It's perfectly, or try to perfectly recreate what the vintage camera does to an image, but it's kind of fake, but it's enough. And it brings tonality to your sound, it brings some texture to your sound, and yeah, you can spice up a bit of your sounds with these impulse responses. So we have, let's see, what also do we have here? We have some amp devices. This one here. You can see some of these are pretty short, 30 milliseconds here. And you can also see, I think, if I'm not wrong here, I think you can also go down to one sample. You can almost see here the quantization, step by step. I think these are just one samples. Each bar is a sample. You can say I want only have here with the first sample. So this is the drum loop through a Ellison 2x10 condenser microphone. And now comes also an interesting part where you put this here into a FX layer, and maybe switch this to a FX selector, and you create multiple of these layers here. And in each layer you put a different taste or flavor, maybe a different amp device here. Maybe this one here. Then you switch the random. You can also use your rhythmic delay effect. infinite possibilities now. So you switch here to that. So with reverb and maybe delay effects, this would sound even better. But just to give you an idea, to use here the convolution device inside the FX selector, it can lead to interesting results. So yeah, you can snapshot some external hardware devices, not only amps. You can also use a tape, or record some tape dynamics or tape taste, tape flavors, and put this on your sound. And yeah, not only external hardware, of course, you can also sample VST plugins if you like some sounds of some of your favorite devices. For instance, for example, we go to the first track prepared here on Polygrid. Inside the Polygrid, we have white noise, stereo. You can also go to mono if you want to. And just have here a small burst of noise and the limiter at the end. The clipper, just remove the clipper here. And use here just a note. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it's a really short burst of noise. So you all know that I like supermassive, not super VHS, and I want to do supermassive. You know that I like supermassive. And if I go here to a very large preset, let's go spaces to place, for instance. Mix knob 100%. And we send this noise burst through this preset into the limiter. Yeah, this is perfect. So let's sample this here. Let's sample along, this would be enough, bounce. So we have now here this, just this white noise, just what you heard. We have this now here as a sample. And we put this into our convolution device here on the polymer. So we can just drag this in. And we can maybe offset here a bit the starting point, or maybe you can leave it at that. We have a bit of pre-delay, so you can see here there's something happening here at the start. You can start here right in the meat, and maybe switch also to this curve mode and blend out the end here a bit. And now we can let's use chorus here at the end. Maybe a filter on there. So you can see we can replicate the sound, or what the preset of Valhalla Supermassive does to our impulse response here, or to our noise burst. We can replicate this with the impulse response here on this polymer sound, and basically can take it with us and apply it to all kinds of different signals without having the Supermassive available. So this can lead to interesting reverbs. You can just use your whatever plugin you like. But for me, it comes more down to that you create interesting things with the noise. So let's use here triggers and maybe a clock quantizer. Put this in here. Maybe use a select so we can switch this off. There's no play. And also delete this one here. Mute this. Okay. And maybe modulate this here a bit. So we have different diffusions at different tabs. Maybe use a panning knob here. Also modulate this. Just a tad. I can do this a bit quieter here. So the limiter is not rocking that hard. Maybe we randomize here this one a bit. Go for 10. So we have different rhythms each time we play. You can also move here from white noise to pink noise at random points. Maybe use one of the new filters here. And because this is 1 out of 10 here, we can apply this to this. So we have to write probably into the file name that it's 1 out of 10. So I'm sampling here some. Maybe I'm also blending this out here over time. So let's see. Maybe you make it a bit short. This and just sample this. So this is the first one here. So you can drag this into here. So now we have basically the rhythmic effect we used here on the sample. We have replicated here on the polymer every time I press a key. So nice. So we can put this here like before into a FX selector. Create another one. Delete this and bounce again because we have all kinds of randomizers on here. We have different sample each time. So put this here on the second one. And see, it's a different sample now. And another one. Delete this. Maybe make some changes here to the A setting. Okay. Bounce. And put this in here. Now we switch to all layers at random and see what comes out. Or maybe go to 100% here. Take this mix knob. Another interesting fact about this convolution device is, if we pull this out here, you can have a tail, a reverb tail, or in this case here it's a rhythmic tail. And then you can turn it off and on, and it's gone. So you can completely silence or choke this device or this reverb inside of a layer of FX selector, and you can switch between the layers and choking off each of these devices. I have to come up with a nice preset for that. I want to probably do this a lot. So when you have a long tail sound here, you can choke it by switching it off and on. It could be also interesting to use this here in maybe in row and use random. Can I switch this off? No, it's not possible. Maybe I put this here into a container. That should work. Container device. Oh, it's not container. It's chain device, sorry. Put this in here. And remove this modulator over here so we can switch the device on and off. Maybe a bit faster. Yeah, maybe not that fast. Okay, so we can switch it on and off. So we can use this here multiple times and use different impulse responses everywhere. Maybe something like this here. Let's see. Just to, you know, create some interesting sounds. It's just an idea. So this could be something you can do. You can switch it off and then it chokes immediately. Because with reverb and delays, I think that's not the case. When you have a delay 1, I think with the reverb it's not possible. With a long reverb, when you switch it on, you still have some tails there. So there's no real reset of the tail. So this could be interesting, at least. Okay, so we have basically external devices you can simulate. You can recreate here some reverbs. We can also, instead of and we can also create these rhythmic effects here, what I just showed you. But we can also do something like EQing. Let's go here back to the initial setting. Let's remove here all the modulators. We are back to our initial burst of noise. Oh, noise is missing, sorry. White noise. Okay, so now that we have voice here, we have this, we have a mono noise, white noise, and just use EQ. And for example, we want to EQ. We cut here off the low end. And maybe boost at 1K. 1K. Okay, nice. Now all we have to do is sample here just a tad bounce. And you can use this here on a convolution reverb on the drums. Pull this in. Delete this, mute this. And you can hear that you have a low cut now here. And the boost at 1K. So we perfectly replicated the EQ setting in here on our impulse response on this drum loop. You can also go down here to the first few samples. But here the resonance kicks in probably on the EQ. It takes a while to build up because it's feedback, or the EQ is made with feedback, so it probably takes some samples to build up the resonance. And that's basically also what you do with your external EQ hardware. When you have EQ, hardware EQs, then you just send through some white noise, dial in some settings, and then you can replicate it inside the DAW. Another interesting use case for me was to, instead of using this noise burst, we use an ADSR here. We use a longer white noise burst, maybe also in stereo. This can be loud here. It's a bit longer. Stop that. Yeah, bring this down here. Make this louder and sample this. Need to unmute. So we have a long sample of white noise here. And we pull this down here into the convolution device. And what we can do with this is basically we can diffuse signals. So we have here this drum loop. Just mute this. So we have here this drum loop. And we can change over the length of the sample how much we want to diffuse or kind of fake diffuse the signal. So because we can diffuse now the signal, we can use this in all kinds of delays. As a feedback, for instance, a feedback FX device here inside of this here. So maybe bring this down. And now we can diffuse. So you can also kind of create a reverb here with the convolution inside of the delay 1. So this is basically our diffusion network, fake diffusion network. So when you have the delay plus, the video I showed you yesterday, where you have this diffusion network here, this is kind of the same thing. You diffuse the feedback FX with the convolution impulse response and get kind of the same thing. Maybe a road cherry in there. So the convolution device of Bitwig Studio is a very versatile effect you can use. And you can resample rooms, external hardware, effect chains, VST plugins. Maybe you can use it for diffusion or just a bit of texture on top, maybe. So everything also in a very CPU efficient way. So it's useful in all kinds of situations, I would say. If you liked the video, then please leave a thumbs up and I see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and bye.